He's actually a lovely, very handsome little boy, very loving. And he started a new school, special school, and we had no idea that they used any kind of physical intervention in the school at all. And he came home one day, his lips were blue, his face was grey, and he collapsed in my arms. And all he could say was, "I dizzy, mummy, teacher hurt." And I honestly thought, Kay, that Callum had had a seizure and the teacher had maybe grabbed him to try and prevent him falling on the floor and hurting himself, but it wasn't. It was a restraint because of, I was told, behaviour. And the 4 staff held him face down on the floor until he couldn't breathe any longer. He lost control of his bladder, and then they picked him up off the floor. They strapped him in a chair and stood over him with an egg timer to indicate he was being punished.
How did you get this information, Beth?
Well, from the school, and from the school, and from the very many meetings and poring over documents, expert witness reports, police reports, all that kind of thing.
I mean, you used the word restraint. If you don't mind, let me just bring in Nick Hobbs on this. When we say restraint, Nick, what do we mean by that?
Well, we mean that a child's being held by someone so that they can't move.
Right, and that is permissible?
The law makes it really clear, both at international and domestic level, that restraint can only be used as a last resort to prevent harm to a child or to somebody else, that it has to involve the minimum force necessary and take place for the minimum time necessary. So it's permissible in a very narrow and very tightly defined set of circumstances.
Right. And Beth, that's what you began to focus on, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I became very vocal. I have to say, Kay, my husband and I were completely devastated because we found out that actually Callum had been treated this way because he didn't want to come off a bicycle that he was riding, and because he didn't do as he was told. The teacher pulled him off the bike, and that was the result. So for me, it was about why had Callum been restrained. It was basically for non-compliance, not doing as he was told. And that's not a reason to use that kind of level of physical intervention. So I became very vocal, and over the years, other parents started to contact me to say, my child's been treated in this way. All of them have a disability, all of them have severe communication difficulties. And the more and more I heard, the more passionate I became. And now in Scotland I have just around 450 families that I support, but I widened the campaign from Scotland to cover the whole of the UK, and I've got 750 families all over the UK that we support.
And your campaign was in protest against unlawful restraint?
Yes.
Right. And John Swinney, in response to the work that you've been doing, Beth, and other people involved with you, has made a recent statement. Let me just read this out. The unlawful use of physical intervention and seclusion is completely unacceptable, and I want to do everything I can to prevent it from happening. That's why I have agreed to introduce new national human rights-based guidance to ensure that for the rare occasions where it is used lawfully, and ensures that children's rights are protected. We will work with key partners as well as children, young people and their families to develop the new guidance, with a review taking place a year after its introduction to test its effectiveness. I am confident that by taking forward these actions we will be able to effect the necessary change. Nick, is this a big deal?
Yeah, we're really pleased that the Scottish Government has now committed to implement the recommendations of our No Safe Place investigation report and to produce human rights-based national guidance. It's also, as you said, really important that children and families will be involved in the drafting and review of that guidance, and that government will consider putting it on a statutory footing if their review of its effectiveness shows that it's not working. And the reason that guidance is important is that I've yet to speak to a teacher who wants to use restraint. We know that teachers don't want to restrain children, and that often they feel like they failed when it does happen. And in fact, some of the concerns that were expressed to us and some of the reasons why we chose to do an investigation on this topic some of those concerns came from staff in schools. And the purpose of the guidance is to reduce the need for restraint to be used, so that very often it happens when staff don't get the time or the information that allows them to plan for the child's needs, when they don't get the resources to meet those needs, and when they don't get the space to review incidents and to engage in reflective practice to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Let me bring in Jan Savage from Enable. What alternatives are there?